The Last of Us returned this week with episode 5 of season 2, and for me, I feel like this was an episode that had some really strong moments within it, but overall, something was just missing slightly. It had a great opening scene that laid down the foundations of the episode and hinted at what was on the horizon during the ending. It had a tension-filled scene with the Stalkers in the warehouse. Then we had a haunting look at the Seraphites and just how brutal they could be. And then finally, we saw a side to Ellie that I've been waiting to see. So in all honesty, that final scene in B2 saved the episode for me. With an ending that hinted at a complete flashback episode next week, I don't think I'm ready for how emotional it's gonna be. So with that, let's dive into this week's episode and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is a review of The Last of Us Season 2 Episode 5 and the ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The opening scene. One thing that The Last of Us is great at doing at the moment is preview trailers and also opening scenes. There have been about 3 opening scenes in this season that have set the backdrop for the episode in the most appropriate and perfect way possible, and this was the case with this feature too. We saw Hanrahan and Elise in a room together where Elise was being investigated for why she made the decision to kill some members of her own team, but also an individual called Leon specifically, somebody who she referred to as the best. As the scene went on, Elise told the story about what was found on the basement levels of the hospital, the actual location where some of the first patients that had Cordyceps went in 2003. So based on that, it already painted a haunting backdrop. People usually make the decision to kill somebody that they care about in this world if they get bitten, but Elise specifically said how Leon communicated over the radio that they hadn't been bitten. Rather, Cordyceps was in the air. This was such a strong moment because it added an extra level of threat to the season. Not only have we moved on from clickers and seen the likes of stalkers that are more intelligent infected and are significantly more difficult to fight off, but now Cordyceps is in the air. It's airborne and is contagious just by inhalation. It completely ramps up the threat of Cordyceps and the chances of becoming infected. Seeing spores in the air later on down the line in the episode, and the way that the Cordyceps had consumed the members of the team and was almost using them as a way of spreading the spores like it was some kind of ecosystem, it was just chilling to see. We heard that the levels of B1 and B2 were sealed off, which is what led to the likes of Leon and the team being stuck there and sentenced to their death. But a moment that really hit me was when Hanrahan walked out of the room after saying that Elise pretty much saved everybody by making the decision to seal it off. She said, "I'm sorry about your son," showing that Elise made the decision to kill her own son, Leon, in order to save the wider population. It genuinely made my stomach drop when she said that because it showed the levels that people genuinely have to go to whilst this outbreak is present. Killing the people that they love most in the world, because if they don't, then the wider population will be impacted. It was a great opening scene that not only showed the progression of Cordyceps, but it painted the perfect backdrop and hinted at the environment that we'd be seeing later on down the line, and that was exactly the case. Ellie and Dina. With Ellie and Dina, we saw a lot of what we've seen over the past few episodes with them, to be honest. Not much character development, just them being blindly in love whilst on this quest for revenge. In the first third of the episode, I was genuinely sitting there thinking how Dina seems more likable than Ellie, which I think is a completely separate issue that the show needs to address in season 3. The whimsical mindset that Ellie has when Dina was genuinely trying to work, and the cliche lines like, "You love me?" just made me cringe a bit. It almost feels like the quest for revenge isn't as serious as what it was when they set out on it because they found their true feelings for each other along the way. However, by the time the ending came around, the episode reached its peak and I genuinely didn't want it to finish. Seeing Ellie confronting Nora inside of the hospital, the place where Ellie was at because she needed to get supplies so Dina's leg could be healed after being hit by a Seraphite, it was peak The Last of Us and was reminiscent of the behavior that Abby emitted on Joel in episode 2, showing that the cycle is going to continue. Ellie was still mourning Joel, even though it's kind of hard to see amongst all of the love and spores that are in the air, but we saw it most when she picked up the guitar and started playing. The lyrics, "If I ever were to lose you," being what she played, but her choosing to stop as this low droning sound started to dominate the environment, highlighted that what she was doing reminded her of Joel, and that she'd lost him. Joel taught her the guitar, so it's almost as if every time she picks it up, he's there with her, which is the reason why I feel like she stopped. Ellie held Nora at gunpoint and was asking her to tell her where Abby was, but Nora refused to do so, ultimately leading her to flee, and once cornered, the only place she could go to was B2, the level that we heard about earlier on in the episode where the likes of Leon was killed. We also heard that the seal was broken when Nora went down there, which most likely means that the spores that were in the air could well make their way up to the different levels in the hospital, and then, if it makes it out, it could genuinely travel outside, which would be extremely damning for the population. Cordyceps 2.0. During this scene, Nora was struggling to breathe, and we saw the likes of Leon, who had been consumed by the Cordyceps but was being kept alive in this infected state, simply existing with his only purpose being a vessel of spreading spores in the air. And as Ellie walked through, she was unfazed. That was a badass move, to be fair. This is where Ellie revealed that she was the girl that was immune, and that she was real. And in return, Nora said to Ellie that Joel killed all of the people in the hospital, and also Abby's father. The very person who could have made a cure. Ellie responded by saying, "I know," which is surprising because I genuinely thought that she didn't. With Ellie demanding Nora tell her where Abby was, but Nora still refusing, Ellie picked up a pipe and started to beat her with it. This showed the emotion in Ellie for the first time in ages, and it tied back into the entire reason as to why she was on this quest. So it was nice to see that passion and care again for Joel. With Nora being beaten, that pretty much makes one down and a few more to go for Ellie. The final scene that we had in the episode was a flashback scene of Joel waking Ellie up when she was still living in the house, and Joel said, "Morning, kiddo." Next week looks like it's going to be an entire flashback episode, and I think we're going to get a good few answers in this one. I think we're going to see the deterioration of Joel and Ellie's relationship and how it ended up in the wounded place that it was when he died. I also think we'll see what Joel did to Eugene, and I think we might well see Joel telling Ellie about what happened in the hospital, which could be how she knows about it and what was the trigger point for their relationship's demise. The Seraphites. During this episode, we started getting drip-fed more information about the Seraphites' behaviors and beliefs even more. About time, right? Ellie and Dina saw a painting of the Prophet on the wall where the words "Feel her love" were painted alongside it, and as well as that, they also saw the Seraphites' brutal nature in how they kill wolf members. This wolf member was clearly given the opportunity to convert to a Seraphite and know her love, but he chose not to until it was too late. He even offered to give them information on when Wolf would next be attacking, but they didn't care for it, showing that all they valued were the beliefs and views of the Prophet and living by her ways, as after all, she did die for it. Before the wolf member was killed, the Seraphite said, "Free him and he will know her love." This was done as he was dangling from a tree, drawn and quartered, something which looked absolutely horrific and showed the brutality in the way that they killed. It was almost ritualistic. What was interesting was that in the opening section of the episode, Hanrahan said how a treaty might have been broken between the Scars, which looked like it could have been triggered when the attack that we saw in the forest took place. So I wonder if there was actually peace amongst them for a short while before the attack in episode 3. I would genuinely like to see more of Wolf and the Seraphites. I think we're seeing less because we've genuinely only got just over a handful of episodes in this season, ultimately meaning that more time has to be spent on Ellie's quest for revenge and the journey to get there, but I'm hoping in the finale they'll feature in some capacity. My review of the episode. Like I said during the beginning of the video, I felt like this episode was a bit so-so. It had some amazing moments within it, but it also had some moments where I was genuinely a bit bored. And it's surprising I was bored in parts because the episode was only 45 minutes long. The Ellie and Dina quest is something that I've lost a bit of interest in because it's just becoming a bit too lovey-dovey. I want to see an Ellie that's angry, has a lust for revenge, and has nothing else on her mind. Like what we saw in the final part of the episode when she was with Nora. I'm just a bit bored of the flirting now, as it feels like it dominates their conversation. When it came to the scene in the warehouse where the Stalkers were, I thought that was a really well constructed scene. There was one, then there were two, and then there were absolutely loads just watching them. The laugh-like sound that they were making as well, it was like a scene in a horror movie. The only bit that I didn't like was how Jesse just walked in, killed them, and saved the day. It just felt a bit too coincidental and unbelievable. However, it was nice to know that Tommy was there too, so I'm looking forward to seeing him on screen again. Has anybody else noticed that nobody can shoot at all in this show? Whether there be an army of guards firing at Ellie and Dina, or Ellie just firing at Nora. It just feels like there's no point in having a gun because the bullet never lands on the target, so that's getting a bit frustrating to see. I'd say my favourite scene in the entirety of this episode was the one with Ellie and Nora on the basement level. The spores in the air and the red tint of the lights made it feel very reminiscent of the Upside Down in Stranger Things, and it matched what I expected following the opening scene. Seeing Ellie absolutely lose herself and go back to the mindset of why she was there and looking to get the revenge that she was after, it was just perfect, and I could feel the emotion from her with every hit that she was doing. The next episode is one that I am actually really looking forward to. Seeing Pedro Pascal as Joel pop up after the episode faded to black took me by surprise, and I think we're going to see the fatherly love and care that he's going to be presenting towards Ellie during their time together. I actually reckon next week's episode has the potential to be just as good as episode 2. Yeah, I really do, so I'm holding out for it. So, there you have it, a review of The Last of Us Season 2 Episode 5 and the ending explained. If you want to see every episode of The Last of Us Season 2 being broken down, then check the playlist below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. What did you think of this episode? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.